Ashcroft and Helen Tiffany. They are the writer. In first chapter of this book, the author look at the development of the descriptive models of the post-colonial writing by examining the different ways in which they appropriate and arrange the material used in linguistic culture. And to the end, they have four major models. So linguistics, culture. So linguists can also convey some meaning. So after getting translation and after getting so many critics, অনেক বেশি যখন রিসার্চ একটা জিনিস রিসার্চার যখন অনেক একটা জিনিস নিয়ে রিসার্চ করবে সো অনেক পার্সপেক্টিভস বেরিয়ে আসবে সো দ্যাট ওয়াজ দ্য কন্ট্রিবিউশন অফ এম্পায়ার্স রাইট ব্যাক আফটার ইটস পাবলিকেশন ইন 1989. The Empire Writes Back was the first major theoretical account of the wide range of post-colonial text that was initiated by this theory writer. And the writing back paradigm in post-colonial theory postulates the post-colonial literature, established a set of new and the revolutionary perspectives on social, cultural, political and narrative forms. So this book actually gave a fresh look in which perspectives, in cultural perspectives, in social perspectives, in political perspectives and also in narrative perspectives. Narrative perspectives, every narration will be a discourse, every narration, every line is a discourse, every sign is a discourse, so everything can be explained in several ways. Just we only know the V sign, but every sign will have some meaning. Okay, so every text and every literature after the publication of this book, The Empire Writes Back, had several perspectives. What are the perspectives? Social, cultural, political and narrative perspectives. That was initiated after this publication. And after that, in such a juncture, translation studies comes up. Okay, and then it was the position in 1990 decades. Translation studies comes up as a profound field of implication of comparative literature. Okay, because after getting translation, a text will not only it will be literally translated. একটা ইংরেজি ভাষা বাংলা ভাষা থেকে একটা সাহিত্য যখন ইংরেজিতে ট্রান্সলেট করা হবে অথবা ফ্রেঞ্চ রাশিয়ান হাঙ্গেরিয়ান যে কোনো ট্রান্সলেশন করা হবে সেটা শুধুমাত্র ভাষাগত ট্রান্সলেশন না, এই ট্রান্সলেশনটা বিভিন্ন আঙ্গিকে এবং এই ট্রান্সলেশনের মধ্যে অনেক ক্রিটিসিজম আছে যেটা আমরা পরবর্তীতে আরও জানবো যেটা যখন এই ইউরোপিয়ান কান্ট্রিতে ট্রান্সলেশন অনেক বেশি যাত্রা শুরু করলো এবং সেই যাত্রার পরিপ্রেক্ষিতে ট্রান্সলেশন স্টাডিজ came as a different discipline, that is translation study. And translation study, is it a part of comparative literature or a byproduct of comparative literature? At that time, that is a byproduct of comparative literature, because in 1990 that is translation influenced by this criticism like Jacques Derrida and others. Though it started in the early 1970s, because his number of publications, conferences established of chairs at universities, research program, etc., made translation studies a discipline in its own right. So at that time, translation studies became an important discipline or subject in universities, and several universities established chair based on translation studies. And in case of translation studies, Israeli cultural researcher Itamar Evan-Zohar, actually he is another person relating to translation studies, along with the Gideon Tori to Tel Aviv, make the contribution of Russian formalism and Czech structuralism, which is called the polysystem theory of translation studies. So in case of comparative literature, in case of deconstruction, Jacques Derrida said polysystem theory. Here in case of translation studies, Evan-Zohar, Tori and they talked about the polysystem in case of translation studies. That means translated text can be analyzed and judged in several ways, not in a single or fixed way. So actually Evan-Zohar's working in Hebrew literature and models and found that all literary relational phenomena should not be regarded as isolated something but should be put into a network. So through the translation studies, Evan-Zohar, he tried to say that actually a text cannot be just in isolation. if a text is read in a single country, সেটাকে বলা হচ্ছে আইসোলেশন। কোনো একটা সাহিত্য যখন একটা দেশের পার্সপেক্টিভসে একটা ভাষায় যখন পড়া হবে তখন সেটাকে বলা হচ্ছে যে আইসোলেশন। এটা তার সে সাহিত্যকর্মের প্রকৃত মূল্যায়ন না। সেটা কি হবে? ইফ ইট ইজ পুট থ্রু ট্রান্সলেশন it will get a network means it will get network among many readers। যখন এটা ট্রান্সলেশন করা হবে সেটা বিশ্বের যে সে ভাষায় ট্রান্সলেশন করা হবে সে ভাষাগুলো রিডারদের মধ্যে একটা কি করবে? নেটওয়ার্ক তৈরি করবে, and through that network that text will be evaluated and judged more, that is in case of translation studies. So this achievement, that means through networking, through translation and through deconstruction, we will be getting new networks for a literary text. That achievement of translation studies by Ivan Joer gives comparative literature another refueling temperament. So translation, comparative literature getting new perspectives through translation studies, through post-colonial studies, and also the cultural studies and social studies as well. Actually, translation studies flashes and comes up with the dynamics of conglomerate of the systems. Conglomerate of system, that means the polysystems. That means we have not a fixed system, we have more than one system to read a literature, to judge a literature, to criticize a literature. And that is the field relating to the comparatist who will be comparing literature, comparative literature through the window of comparative literature. So this polysystem notion of translation studies gives an extra eye. এর আগে আমাদের কয়টা আই ছিল? দুইটা। যদি আমরা একটা লিটারেচারকে আরেকটা লিটারেচারে কম্পেয়ার করতে হবে, এবং বিফোর কম্পারেটিভ লিটারেচার we have only single perspectives, but when we have got the perspectives that we can judge literature from cultural, social, political perspectives, narrative perspective, Freudian social linguistics perspective, formalist perspectives, structuralist perspectives, so many perspectives are there, and that perspectives was given to us by the comparative literature. That means we have so many canon. At the time of war, if you have one kind of weapon, you can fight with the single weapon. But comparative literature gave the researchers so many canon মানে common. So many weapons to judge a literature, to criticize a literature, and to evaluate and research on a specific literature. It may be the original literature or it may be the translated literature. Okay, so many perspectives will be there. So this very observation changes the debate on dividing literature as a great and marginal literature. So what is the achievement of that? Actually, from these perspectives, so there was no division between great literature and marginal literature. All literature are great because literature will be viewed in several perspectives. If a literature is viewed in perspectives, so all literature are great. You can't call any literature that your literature is the marginal literature, because whatever may be the status of my literature and culture, this is my culture, that is my national identity, that is my cultural identity, and that is my literary identity, and that enhancement was given by the initiation of comparative literature. And translation studies relates to the work of linguistics, literary study, history, anthropology, psychology, sociology, and ethnology. Okay, so আস্তে আস্তে আমরা কি কম্পারেটিভ লিটারেচারের অনেক জিনিস যে শুধুমাত্র কোনো টেক্সটই আমরা আলোচনা করতে পারি না, এটার দ্বারা অনেক কিছুই আমরা আলোচনা করতে পারি, হিস্ট্রি আলোচনা করতে পারি, অ্যানথ্রোপোলজি, সোশিওলজি, অ্যান্ড আদার ethnology we can discuss through the comparative literature. So comparative studies overcomes the claims that translation studies is a marginal subject, rather it becomes a major shaping force for changing the history of culture. And traditionally translation studies is claimed as a subcategory of comparative literature, but next time it became an individual literature. Which one? Translation studies. আসলে ট্রান্সলেশন স্টাডিজ যখন যাত্রা শুরু করেছিল তখন মনে হচ্ছিল যে এটা হলো সাব জনরা, নট ইম্পর্টেন্ট, বাট যখন দেখা গেলো যে ট্রান্সলেশন স্টাডিজের মধ্যে থ্রু দ্য আইডিয়া অফ রিকনস্ট্রাকশন, থ্রু দ্য আইডিয়া অফ আদার পার্সপেক্টিভস, ইট বিকেম আন ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল জনরা। ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল মিনস ইম্পর্টেন্ট জনরা ইন ইটস অন শেপ। নিজের গুরুত্বের কারণে ট্রান্সলেশন স্টাডিজ এখন কি হয়ে গেল, একটা আলাদা ডিসিপ্লিন অর সাবজেক্ট হয়ে গেল। সো ফর দ্য ওয়ার্ক অফ দ্য স্কলার লাইক টুরি, Lebedev, Hermans, Lambert and many others has shown that translation plays significant role at the moment of cultural change. Cultural change means the attitude towards culture. That means in Asian culture, African culture and European culture. Before that, European culture, they thought that that was the great culture, but next time, through the cultural and national identity, every literature became great. There was no difference between major literature and minor literature, and everything was possible through the aspects of comparative literature. Okay, so in such a way, comparative literature started its journey. So comparative literature started its journey in 1992 through the havoc of translation. And why such kind of study initiated? That was initiated by the polysystem theory done by Jacques Derrida. And Jacques Derrida, Pierre Bourdieu, Jean-Paul Sartre for their contribution in comparative literature. Comparative literature got a new entity, and that enhanced comparative literature, that it is a very important discipline, and we can judge a literature through several perspectives, through sociological perspectives, through history, through linguistics, through structuralist, formalist perspectives. Every perspective we can judge a literature. Okay, so thank you very much, because we have to conclude today's class right now. Because